Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Before we praise my artistic skills, I'm impressed with myself, right? But Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said in a hadith that's found in Sahih Muslim that the best prayer after the fard is the tahajjud prayer, the tahajjud salah. And the reason for that is it's so difficult to wake up for tahajjud. It's just so difficult. It's and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, regarding tahajjud, إِنَّهُ أَشَدُّ وَطَعًا وَأَقْوَمُ قِيلًا, that tahajjud salah is very heavy when it comes to suppressing the nafs. Very heavy with regards to suppressing the nafs. So if there's something that you would like to overcome in your life, whatever it may be it swearing, be it an addiction, be it whatever, like haram in your life, be it just a bad habit, then to force your nafs into submission, into obedience, remember you can't break your nafs. Nafs is necessary. If you didn't have nafs, then there'd be no desire for procreation, there'd be no desire for food. You would die just because you wouldn't feel like eating, right? You have no inclination, no instinct, no desire for anything. So nafs is necessary, but we haven't been charged with breaking the nafs. We've been charged with controlling the nafs, right? Remember this. So when it comes to suppressing and controlling the nafs, tahajjud salah is one of the most important elements, and it's part of any Sufi order, the element of tahajjud salah. Now, the Sufi order that I follow, I'm sure it's very lenient. And he's like, brother, read it at least before you sleep, those 2 rakats, so that at least you read something. You understand? Before you sleep. And I promise you, even that, ensuring that you make that wudu and you go and read those 2 rakats of salah before you sleep, is very difficult. Because this is a sunnah that I believe is forgotten, sunnah that I personally would like to revive, and I'd like to encourage everybody to make wudu before going to sleep. It's a very important sunnah. The hadith explains that a person who performs wudu before he goes to sleep, his soul will be in sujood under the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout the night. Right? Just to put this into perspective, if you could physically go to the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every night and lie in sujood or lay in sujood throughout the night, wouldn't you want to do that? Wouldn't you want to do that?
It must remain there.
It must remain there. It hasn't come back, mashallah. So our soul gets that opportunity every night. Now the Shafi'i brother once asked me a question. Yeah, but Sheikh, if I lie next to my wife, I made wudu before going to bed, and then I go lie next to my wife, doesn't my wudu break?
No.
Okay, so we need some lights for the camera and the action here. Can you let me see the screens? Yo, there we are. Okay, can you put there we go. Shukran. Jazakallah khairan. So the answer to that question is, it is still sunnah to make your wudu and jump into bed. Okay? And if, for instance, you were intimate with your wife, then Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu said that, it's difficult every night you go make a ghusl and then jump in bed. So plus those days they didn't have showers, it was like a bucket, brother, and you have to go take a full ghusl with a small bucket. So he said, well, at least go and do istinja and make wudu so that you have some level of tahara when you get into bed. You understand? Okay. It's still sunnah, even though your wudu breaks. Like for Hanafi can argue the same thing, but when you fall asleep, your wudu breaks. Right? It's still sunnah to get into your bed with wudu. Right, let us try that, inshallah. Having said that, next screen. There you go. So, intention. Remember we spoke in the beginning about preparing yourself the night before, getting all your things ready for tahajjud. I hope we've done that, right? In the very least, remove all the obstacles from your way so that when you wake up in the middle of the night, you can just jump up, toilet, wudu, and on the musalla for tahajjud, right? So when it comes to intention, when you are standing now on your musalla and you're about to make the intention, The place of intention is the heart. The scholars have mentioned two aspects with regards to this. So intention you make in your heart. You don't have to physically verbalize, physically say your intention. Although for people who struggle to keep their concentration, to say the intention is also okay, right? Number one is to intend what you are doing, and number two is to intend why you are doing it. For instance, you say, I'm reading 2 rakat Salatul Haja. You've got a need, and we've been instructed to ista'inu bis-sabr wa salah. Seek Allah's assistance with sabr and with salah. So you have a need, and you I'm reading 2 rakats of Salatul Haja, salah of need. But what need do you have to express that need? Oh Allah, I'm performing these 2 rakats Salatul Haja so that you can, or so that you resolve whatever issue it may be. You understand? Uncle Yusuf asked me an interesting question after Jumu'ah. When it comes to Salatul Tasbih and Salatul Tahajjud, 4 rakat, if you can read 4 rakats of Tahajjud, 4 rakats Salatul Tasbih, 2, if you're Shafi'i, 4, 1 shot if you're Hanafi. Right? So, what is the difference between the two? Aren't they the same? So, the answer is they are the same in the sense that both salahs are optional. It's nothing, right? And it's not a compulsory salah. One doesn't have virtue over the other in terms of the type of salah you're reading. It's nothing. It's optional, right? However, Salatul Tasbih can be read any time of the day, okay? Except in the makruh times, okay? That's now after Fajr before sunrise and after Asr until sunset, right? So, your Salatul Tasbih can be read any time, but Tahajjud is specific for the night, for a specific purpose, and that is to control your nafs. Salatul Tasbih is for the specific purpose of seeking forgiveness. But now when it comes to optional salah, you can join intentions. Let's say you come to the masjid, you make a fresh wudu, you're walking into the masjid. Now it's Tahiyatul Masjid, which is Sunnah Mu'akkada. It's Tahiyatul Wudu. With that, because it's optional salah, you can say Salatul Shukr, Salatul Tawbah, and Salatul Hajj for whatever need you have. So you add 5 intentions into the 2 rakat, you get the reward of 10 rakats of salah. Because you've made a conscious intention for that, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ana 'inda dhanni 'abdi bi. I treat my servant according to his expectations of me. So if we have high hopes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we can double up on intentions, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us the extra reward. This has been mentioned by the ulama of Fiqh across the board, right? So number one is to intend what. So I hope you understand the difference between Tahajjud and Salatul Tasbih. With that, having said that, we're talking about joining Salah. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you decide, I'm going to read Salatul Tasbih, right? Make the intention of Tahajjud with that, because it's in the Tahajjud time. So you'll get double the reward for the Tasbih and for the Tahajjud Salah. And then on top of that, in terms of the amount of Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, reading Salatul Tasbih, there's a lot more than in the Tahajjud Salah. So you'll get that reward more than in the Tahajjud Salah because you're not reading it, right? But in terms of virtue itself and the benefits to be derived from it, in terms of its establishment, even from a hadith perspective, Salatul Tasbih is not as authentically established as Tahajjud Salah, right? Like, there are scholars who debate whether you can or can't read Salatul Tasbih to begin with, right? Because of the grading of the hadith. But nobody fights about Tahajjud. Everybody knows, okay? So back to the slide. Number one is to intend what you are doing, like you're doing Tahajjud Salah. And number two is to intend why you are doing it. And ultimately, our intention is always for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But like Shaykh Abdul Rahman mentioned last week, that it's silly actually to go and worship Allah. This is something beautiful for me in terms of Islam. Now, we grew up Christian, right? And in terms of a physical act of worship, right? A physical display of devotion, Salah is just something else. There's nothing that you can compare to Salah as in terms of showing submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, physically putting your head on the ground, to the extent that there were kuffar of Makkah who refused to make sujood to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because why? I refuse to put my head beneath my bum. I refuse to put my head beneath my bum. And that's why they refuse to make sujood, because when your head is on the floor, the bum is in the air. And that's why they refuse to make sujood. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ridiculed them in the Quran. Right? So, minimally, it is enough to just for nafil and any nafil salah and sunnah salah, right? For fard salah, we've been taught that you must stipulate, I'm reading the 4 rakats, fard of dhuhr, facing qibla, following the imam for pleasure of Allah. You must stipulate what salah is. You can't read that salah by accident. But nafil salah, because you're reading any salah, Allahu Akbar, it's salah. And performing salah, Allahu Akbar, for the pleasure of Allah. You understand what I'm saying? You don't have to specify what it is. But to get focus, and to truly derive the benefits from what we are doing, let us intend that I'm reading these 2 rakats or 4 rakats, whatever it may be, of tahajjud for the sake of Allah. And I'm going to ask you to add this intention. Oh Allah, whatever benefit I am supposed to derive from this tahajjud, let me derive that benefit. Same thing with Fard Salah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. Salah is supposed to stop you from fahsha and munkar. Fahsha means immoral behavior, immoral or immorality in general. Fahsha, nudity, right? Lewdness. Is it lewdness? Not nudity. I said lewdness. To apologize. Right? And munkar means things that are scorned, things that are considered wrong, things that are disliked by society, things that are shunned by a healthy, normal society, right? So salah is supposed to stop us from immorality, from lewdness, and from wrong. So if I am performing salah 5 times a day and I'm not stopping from the wrong and the immorality in my life, it means that I'm not making that firm intention, and I'm not reading my salah properly. So to make that conscious intention that, oh Allah, I'm reading my salah for your pleasure, whichever salah may be, please let me derive the benefit I'm supposed to derive from the salah. And like I explained, the tahajjud salah in the Quran, إِنَّهُ أَشَدُّ وَطَأً وَأَقْوَمُ قِيلًا. Inna nashi'at al-layli. Waking up in the middle of the night. Hiya ashaddu wata'an is very strong, very powerful in terms of subduing the nafs. And aqwa muqila, when you're reading Quran that time of the night, the words just feel different. It just sounds different. Ask anybody who's accustomed to performing salah, right? Tahajjud salah. What it feels like to read surahs of the Quran that time of the day, at that time of the night, and what it feels like during the day or any other time. It's very different. There's a special what, if you get what I'm saying. There's a special what. Okay? Hey? Not advertising. I don't get commission. I'm not affiliate marketing. Okay. It is best though to specify that you're performing the particular sunnah salah that you are intending to perform. So if it's tahiyatul masjid, tahiyatul wudu, right? Or in this case, tahajjud. Let us make those firm intentions. Number 3. I almost said number next. Okay. When it comes to the benefits of tahajjud, now this is why I'm saying make the intention, oh Allah, whatever benefit I'm supposed to derive from tahajjud, let me get that benefit, right? Those benefits include that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that he was asked which prayer is more virtuous after the fard prayers. And he said it is the salah in the depths of the nights, narrated in Sahih Muslim, Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, and Ibn Majah. Right? So it's like all the books of hadith except for Bukhari. Right? Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "O people, أيها الناس أفشوا السلام وأطعموا الطعام وصلوا الأرحام وصلوا بالليل والناس نيام تدخلوا الجنة بسلام." أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام من جد الترمذي and مستدرك للحاكم. So Imam Hakim rahimahullah ta'ala, just to digress quickly, he collected all the ahadith that fit the grade and the standard of Bukhari and Muslim, and then he started putting them in order. So he had like an entire compilation of hadith, and then he started selecting and compiling them into books. All the hadith, mustadrak, made, so that's the words on, how do I explain mustadrak? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. I can't explain this. Okay, so I've done something and I've said all these narrations are sahih according to these standards. Okay, then whichever other ahadith I didn't mention that also meet those standards, mustadrak means to make up for that, to compile them, to kind of make up for it. I don't know how. Mustadrak literally means to catch up. Tadaruk means to if somebody's made a mistake, then to catch up with him and rectify his mistake is called tadaruk. So mustadrak means not a mistake, just to catch up and add those on. Okay, so you'll find the first part of his book is authentic. The second half is very much scattered because he didn't have time to complete his book before he passed away. Rahimahullah ta'ala. Anyway, the same happened to Musannaf, to Sahih Ibn Hibban. Right? The same thing, if I'm not mistaken. So Abdullah bin Salam, rahimahullah ta'ala, was a Jewish rabbi, very, very highly acclaimed. In fact, when the Jews were asked about him, they said, "Khayruna wa ibnu khayrina." He's the best among us, and he's the son of the best man among us. So Rasulullah said, well, what if I tell you he accepted Islam? Hey, sharruna wa ibn sharrina. Hey, he's a rubbish and his father was even worse. So Abdullah bin Salam walked out and he said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. They started nailing him. So the first hadith Abdullah bin Salam rahimahullah ta'ala heard when he walked into the masjid was, oh people, spread salam, feed other people, maintain family ties, and pray at night while others are sleeping. And I guarantee you will enter salah, you will enter Jannah with complete peace. You will enter Jannah safe and sound, without a stress, without a worry at all. Right? So that is another very important benefit of tahajjud. But spread salam, feed other people, participate in feeding schemes, contribute towards them. Right? Another cool thing you can do is contribute to the masjid for the cooking. And then they cook on Fridays and they sell it. You getting the reward of feeding people and maintaining and upkeeping the masjid, inshallah. Right? Maintain family ties, which is different, but Sheikh Salama made a very valid point today, right? That you and I are brothers, and we've been at each other's throats about something. It doesn't matter what we're fighting about. But in the very least, let us keep our interaction with one another as Assalamu alaikum and leave it there. If anything else is going to lead to a fight. But to cut each other off completely, this is now not upholding family ties. Another very important thing that the lady, Sheikh Hassan Evans pointed out this weekend, that unfortunately a fasakh hearing, right? This past weekend, when a lady was complaining about the fact that he doesn't like my parents and he doesn't like my family. So the answer that Sheikh Hassan gave, and it's a very valid point, the word is silatul rahim. Rahim means blood ties, okay? Blood ties, family ties. So when you're a son-in-law or you're a daughter-in-law, you're related to me by marriage, or I'm related to you by marriage. Your family is not my family, and my family is not your family. We try to unite everybody, right? But if I'm not stopping you from going to your family, you can't tell me I'm not upholding family ties because I don't go sit and drink tea with them in Kapshap. Kapshap means to chit-chat, right? You understand what I'm saying? Upholding family ties doesn't mean I must run after your family and you must run after mine. Because many a time when you try and force your spouse on your family when they're not vibing so lekker, it causes a lot of problems. So let's keep it civil as Assalamu alaikum, you okay, alhamdulillah, and leave it there. Right? Silatul arham. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq and understanding. It's a very difficult concept. Okay? Number 3 was that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, hold on to the night prayer because it was the way of all the pious people before you and the way of drawing closer to Allah. It's an expiation for all your wrong deeds and it's a shield from sin. Understand what does tahajjud do? Tahajjud helps you stay away from sin. Why? What does the Quran say? It helps you to subdue your nafs. So when you've subdued your nafs, I promise you with dhikr as well. A person who reads his 5 salahs every day, makes dhikr every day, performs tahajjud every day. I'm telling you, when the itch to sin, the itch to do something wrong, let's say for instance you decide you want to go and have a cup of coffee with a girl that's not related to your girlfriend, right? Right? You're going to be like, oh, I have to be in the masjid just now. How am I going to get to the masjid? You understand? Oh, if I meet you an hour for coffee, I'm going to miss my salah. Oh, especially if you're wearing a kurta and you're growing your beard and whatever. Like, what are people going to think of me if they see me in my kurta and my beard with a sticky? You understand? Oh, right? And it's like a club also. Like, you ever checked okay, guys, I used to go clubbing before. Allah have mercy on us, right? Before accepting Islam. Never in your life did you ever see a Muslim guy with a beard and a kurta and a kufi in a club. Why? Because you can't. Brother, it's a protection for your deen. Okay? So the same thing with tahajjud salah, with your dhikr of Allah, with your Quran. You're going to wake up, I wake up for tahajjud every night. And I'm taking a go out for coffee. You understand what I'm saying? It won't sit lekker with you. You might do it a few times, and then eventually your nafs is going to stop. This is why it's called nafs amara, the nafs that keeps dragging you into sin and keeps demanding sin from you. And then you get a nafs lawama. Your nafs will start reprimanding you that, what kind of guy are you, brother? And then, you're sitting drinking coffee. What's wrong? Eventually you feel so bad. You will feel so bad. Just like istighfar as well. If you repeatedly make istighfar, eventually a time will come in your life where you feel so guilty that I'm seeking forgiveness for the same thing over and over and over again. How long am I going to commit the same sin? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you tawfiq to stop. Allah help us. Ya Rabbil Alameen. In some narrations, it's also added that tahajjud repels sickness from the body. So it is a form of good health. It is a form of good health. There's a hadith that speaks about a person who performs tahajjud, wakes up, tayyibatu nafs. Like his nafs is just in a good state. He's in a good mood, he's in a good state of mind. And if you don't read your tahajjud, you wake up khabithul nafs. You wake up in a sullen, dull state. I don't know what's sullen. Let me ask the other word. Okay. Lastly, Imam Abu Sa'id Al-Khadimi rahimahullah ta'ala said, listen carefully. There is consensus among the ulama, this is ijma', meaning nobody denies that among the best of virtuous deeds that you could possibly perform is performing the tahajjud salah. Now let's just think about this very important thing. All these things that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said is a promise. What Allah spoke about in the Quran, that tahajjud subdues your nafs, is a promise. That salah will help you stay away from sin and wrong and vice, that is a promise. So if we truly believe in the promises of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then to go and get all these things will become easier for us. And this is the biggest dilemma that the Ummah is facing now, where we have lost, firstly, faith in the promises of Allah of the rewards of good deeds, and we have lost faith in the warnings of Allah of punishment for sin. We need to rekindle that. And this is something that if we wake up for tahajjud, force yourself, right? Wake up for tahajjud and ask Allah to instill that in us, inshallah. Next slide. The details with regard to tahajjud itself, how's me burning the midnight candle there? Okay? Tahajjud refers to the prayer performed at the beginning, it refers to any prayer performed after the beginning of Isha time. So the moment you perform your fard of Isha, your two sunnahs of Isha, any salah that you perform after that is called tahajjud. I'm giving you the lenient view here, because others have said no, unless you go to sleep, it's called qiyamul layl. Right? So the view that we normally learn is that qiyamul layl, standing up for worship at night, is if it starts after Isha and carries on until whenever. Right? Tahajjud is after hujud, after you go to sleep and wake up. That's the view I explained to you, right? That is generally the accepted view. However, we are most beginners here. We're novices in this field. We're trying to step into the arena of real tahajjud. So it refers to any prayer performed after the Isha Salah. So if tonight you're just not feeling okay, you're feeling weak, you're feeling tired, read those 2 rakats before you sleep. You will still come to bed with wudu, inshallah. You get that reward, and you will get the reward of tahajjud, inshallah, according to the view of these ulama. If you then wake up, nurun ala nur. Right? If you wake up, nurun ala nur. The time for performing tahajjud ends when Isha ends and Fajr starts. Remember, that's the same time. The moment Isha time ends, Fajr Salah starts. Okay? Therefore, any voluntary prayer performed after the Fajr Salah does not constitute tahajjud. So you hear in the hadith, right, of Sahaba radiallahu anhum starting Salat night, Allahu Akbar. And that once, Allahu Akbar, never forget the story. Sahabi comes home from jihad. Okay? La ilaha illallah. Don't try this at home, guys. There's a disclaimer on this, but don't try this at home. You probably get stabbed. So he comes home from jihad. First night he's seeing his wife and his children. Obviously, he's been on a tour of duty for how many months now? He walks into his home. His wife is thrilled to see him dressed up in alles, and he asks her, can I just read 2 rakats of salah? And then I'm coming to bed. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum. Allahu Akbar for Fajr. He made his second salah when he heard the adhan for Fajr. Abba was very impressed with him, I must just tell you, right? Very impressed with him. But what does this tell you about Sahaba radiallahu anhu? Right? The enjoyment they got out of tahajjud. One Sahabi was reading salah at night. He was supposed to be on guard. So he stood on guard, monitoring everyone and thought, okay, well, I'm standing here, I'm facing Qibla, I'll read my salah. I can still see if anything goes wrong. Right? Enemy spy comes into the camp, sees him standing there, fires 3 arrows into his body, he's still reading salah. 3 arrows. And when his partner who was on watch with him, who was sleeping next to him, after the 3rd arrow, he stopped his salah, he woke him up, he said, listen, bro, I just got shot with 3 arrows. Something's going down. Right? 3 arrows, bro. 3 arrows, if you didn't stop. It's Surah Kahf, my man. I was flying around in Jannah. I didn't even think of stopping. Any one of us ever been reading salah? It happened to me here right next door. Allahu Akbar, and a mouse ran across from the salah. You understand what I'm saying? You guys got arrows shot into their bodies, they didn't even blink. Like you want to press the panic button now, the ADT must come through. You know? Anyway. Okay? So, I'm not saying you must not go into that state, but after Isha, go home, read your 2 rakats of salah, please, wal asr and inna a'atayna, and get into bed. Otherwise, tomorrow morning, my was upset with me because you said I was to tell all night. Okay, second, ideally, we want to sleep and then wake up in the latter part of the night. But there's leniency in this view, of the scholars. So as beginners, we should make use of that. And then we get to the amount. The minimum amount of tahajjud is 2 rakats of salah. That's the minimum. Okay, tahajjud 2 rakats. All right. And the maximum, which is the optimum recommended amount, although there is no limit really. One person, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala was really, really on another level of piety, righteousness, to the extent that he was so concerned about other people as well and honesty, that if he heard somebody else say something dishonest or incorrect, he would try and make that correct. Do you understand? Let me give you a perfect example. Somebody, he was walking in, they don't know him personally, they just know Abu Hanifa, Abu Hanifa, Abu Hanifa, and all the stories about Abu Hanifa. He heard one person saying that, Abu Hanifa reads 100 rakats of nafil salah in a night. And he's walking past when he hears this, and he's like, no, I don't. But now this bro's lying. So what did he do the next night? He went to read 100 rakats of nafil salah, just so that this man doesn't lie. Right? You don't have to read 100 rakats of nafil salah. Just so, by the way, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah ta'ala, when he was tried by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he, with regard, I'm not going to go into the discussion of what the fiqh issue was, but there was severe pressure on the ulama from the government and from the Khalifa side, who took a view completely contrary to Sharia, right? Literally, that could take you out of the fold of Islam. And everybody accepted that view because the Khalifa said, except for a handful of ulama. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, who was the student of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, was one of them. And Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala saw a dream in which Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam came to him and said to him, go and tell Ahmad bin Hanbal that I am pleased with what he is doing and he must stand his ground. So Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala the next day dispatched somebody to Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah ta'ala to convey this message. He was so happy, true to Arab custom, he took his clothes over his body and he gave it inside home. He was standing naked now, don't misunderstand. Went home, changed his clothes and gave him the clothes off his back as a token of appreciation, right? That's something that we can also do, inshallah. When we hear good news, right? Good news, then whoever gives us this good news, we can give them your clothes as a gift. That is the practice of the Sahaba radhiyallahu anhum, right? So we talk about 100 rakats of nafil salah. He was imprisoned and beaten severely, literally wrapped in a sheet and beaten mercilessly till he was unconscious. And then they took the sheet off him and they woke him up, and they were feeling sorry for him now because they beat him so badly. Then they said to him, like, don't you want to eat something? He said, no, excuse me, I'm fasting. And because of the, sorry, it was not Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, it was Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala, just because of the beating he had received, he had to cut down the amount of salah that he reads in a day from 1,000 to 500 rakats. Just putting it out there, right? So we're not asking you to read 1,000 rakats of nafil salah in a day. Where did they get the time for that? It's called barakah. So you get length in time, you get depth in time as well. That depth in time is called barakah. Allah make it easy for all of us, right? So recommended optimal amount is 8 rakats, which was the general practice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As the school point of view, you're allowed to read 1 rakat of witr, okay? Although the sunnah is still 3 rakats with 2 salam, 2 rakat in salam, 1 rakat in salam. Please remember that. Don't be lazy with your witr, right? It's a superior sunnah salah. Hanafis have elevated or ranked it as wajib, compulsory salah, secondary to fard salah, okay? And then the other 2 rakats to make 13 was after the witr salah. He performed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, spent almost the whole night in salah, and he completed his witr salah, and he just made salam, and just to end of the night, sitting down, 2 rakats, Allahu Akbar, sitting down, okay? So that's also sunnah. Now you get some brothers, Allah bless us. And I had an argument with my teachers about this. It wasn't an argument, it was a debate. He argued with me more than anything. Allah have mercy on my ustad, I love him to bits. That they don't read tahajjud, but after the witr in the masjid, sitting down 2 rakats, Allahu Akbar. He said, no, you won't get the reward for that salah because you're supposed to read that after witr salah in tahajjud. So I said, I'm very sorry, but Mulana Rashid Ahmed can go here, rahimahullah ta'ala, Mulana Muhammad Zakaria Kandihim, we said, no, you get the full reward. Because it's still sunnah, whether you read tahajjud or you didn't read tahajjud, it's a separate sunnah. So first he debated with me, and then he went to go and check up, and he came back and he said, no, you're right, but we must follow sunnah properly. Anyway, long story short, don't be lazy. It's like some guys who grow long hair, beard shaver. Now, why are you growing your hair? That was sunnah. Beard is the biggest sunnah, boss. Grow your beard, leave the hair, it's fine. It's all right. Just no, but Imam, it's so difficult. How is it difficult to grow your beard? No, you don't have to shave, you don't have to buy a blade, you don't have to buy a machine, you just have to leave it. That's like saying it's difficult to lie down. No, you don't have to expend any energy, you just have to lay there. Like how hard? How hard is it? Brother, am I right or am I right?
Yeah.
I know I'm right, that's what I'm saying. Okay, next slide. The second debate we have is what is better? To have long rakats of salah, for instance, Surah Fatiha, and then to read like Surah Yasin or read 2 juz of the Quran and then ruku, or is it better to read many rakats of salah? Does anybody have a question? Any questions here? Any questions here? Okay, what is better? Should I rather read many rakats of salah, or should I rather read few rakats of long salah? So the answer to that question is, there are different views, as always, with everything in this whole dunya. تخالف الناس حتى لا اتفاق لهم إلا على شجب والخلف في الشجب, says Mutanabbi, the famous Arab poet. He's called Mutanabbi because he claimed to be a prophet, and then obviously they beat him like a legend, so fix his brains off him a little bit. And ما صلى وما صلى قط, he didn't read one salah or fast one day in his life, but his poetry was off the hook. So he says people have debated and differed in every single thing, to the extent that they are only united upon death, and then they still debate how you die. And is death now the absence of life, or is it something completely separate? You understand? So there's no consensus about anything, not even this. So there are different views. However, the generally accepted view is that longer rakats are better than many rakats. Remember we said the sunnah is how many rakats? 8. Minimum is 2. Optimum sunnah is 8 rakats. So if you can read 8 rakats, then the question of many rakats doesn't really come up, does it? Doesn't really come up when you're restricted in the amount that you should be reading optimally. Okay? So, in other words, it is better to perform 2 long rakats than 8 short rakats. Okay? So, if you have now stipulated that I'm going to read, let's say for instance, you got ready for Tahajjud and everything, is half an hour left. So now you've got 2 options. I'm going to read full 8 rakats, and then my witr, which is sunnah, it's 11 rakats, which I can comfortably do in half an hour. Or I'm going to read 2 rakats, but I'm going to try and read a quarter juz in each rakat to make up for that 25 or 20 minutes, and then I'm going to read my witr. So ideally, you want to extend the time you stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rather than the amount of sajdas you make. You understand? It is still sunnah though, optimally to read 8 rakats of salah. Remember that, right? Okay. The evidence in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is to stand and pray for so long that his feet would get swollen. And Aisha radiallahu anha would then ask him, like, why do you exert yourself like this? That your feet are now swollen. حتى ورمت قدماه. كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. He said, أفلا أكون عبدا شكورا? Should I not be a grateful servant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So his lengthy rakat, standing for extended periods of time, was him expressing his gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and being a grateful servant, right? I was telling my wife yesterday morning, actually, it hit me. When was it? It was Tuesday night when I was Wednesday when I was so sick. I didn't come for Maghrib or Isha. I read my Isha at home and I thought to myself, yes, we've got so much to be grateful for. Think about it. We've seen that we've got homes to stay in, we've got clothes, we've got electricity bills paid, we've got water and lights paid, we've got extra money, we've got bank accounts, we've got cell phones, smartphones, we've got data, we've got access to so many things. We've got good health, we've got aql, we've got understanding in our heads, we've got eyes that can see, even though we've got glasses, we've got ears that can hear, we've got watches, we've got stuff, we've got so much. And the one thing we don't have, we'll sit and complain about. That's the only thing we'll talk about. Think about that. So we've got so much to be grateful for. Why not then wake up for Tahajjud Salah and then express that gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in servitude? Right? Am I walking off the screen? Because I'm coming to stand here now then. Okay. Center stage. Okay. Lengthy recitation is superior to a large number of rakats prayed, and that was the books of Fatawa, yeah? Al-Aashiqeen, Durr al-Mukhtar of Ibn Abidin, Shami, al-Mukhtar, okay? And we should also prolong our ruku and sujood as much as reasonably possible. For instance, Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu said he had this very close relationship with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him that, brother, when you want to come into my house, just walk in. When you get to the door, just cough. If I don't say anything, then just walk in. Okay? So he would get to the door. Now, how it worked. How do I explain this to you? Okay, the masjid was like this. In that corner there where the muadzin's microphone is, there was a door. Okay, that door led into a courtyard with a passage. His private room was on the one side of that courtyard. That's where Aisha radiallahu anha used to sleep. Okay, on this side was Ali radiallahu anhu, and I think it was Aqil bin Abdul Muttalib. Aqil bin Abi Talib, the one uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Fatima radiallahu anha, Ali stayed here, another person stayed here. And that side of the passage, okay, because it was like a square, triangle, rectangle, an open courtyard with a passage, two houses here and his private courtyard. On the other side was another woman's house. Okay, everything was like built on top of each other like that. Sahaba had houses built like on the masjid wall, and everybody had what is called the khawkha. Khawkha was like a little gap where they could just squeeze in from the side like this to get into the masjid. And just before he passed away, he instructed everybody to close their plural of khawkha is khawkhat, their holes, their little niches to come into the masjid. Only Abu Bakr Siddiq was allowed to keep his one open, which was an indication that the next man after me is Abu Bakr Siddiq. That's why he was supposed to keep his door open so he could come in and out the masjid comfortably. Okay? So you would get to that entrance, not the private room, because you're thinking, oh, but Aisha's there most now, he's supposed to just walk in, right? By the courtyard, and then he would cough. And if there was nothing happening, the family wasn't sitting around there, then he would say, okay, if the family was sitting around there, bearing in mind, Aisha was his wife, Fatima was his daughter, Aqil was his cousin, his wife was probably a cousin as well. I can't remember the name of the wife, right? But they would be sitting there, the family. You understand what I'm saying? Everybody got it? So if the ladies were sitting there and Abdullah bin Mas'ud arrived and he coughed, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, okay, not now. So then what? He couldn't come in. But if there was no noise, he would walk in. So he walked in one night, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was here in the courtyard facing Qibla, performing his Tahajjud Salah. Okay? And he's like, I just joined. What an opportunity, right? You walk into the house of Rasulullah, he's performing Tahajjud. You know, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. 6 juz of Quran in the first rakat. Then Allahu Akbar. He's like, first I thought, okay, 100 ayah, 100 ayah, 200 ayah. Okay, after Surah Baqarah. Okay, now maybe, so it was supposed to be Surah Baqarah, then Al-Imran, then Surah Nisa. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam read Baqarah, Surah Nisa, and then Al-Imran. It's like, حتى ظننت بالسوء. It's like, I want to do something so bad. I want to break my salah and walk away, go to the guys, right? But then he said, when he went into ruku', his ruku' was as long as the qiyam. So what is this? This means barakah in time. How do you get so much salah done in one night? Right? 6 juz of Quran takes a lot of time. But the answer to that is, there's a hadith in Sahih Muslim that all the rakats of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam were similar, right? Tonight when you read that, you must join in them. 6 juz, first rakat. So what that hadith means is that when in each rak'ah, the qiyam was similar to the first rak'at qiyam, and each rak'at ruku' was similar in length. Each rak'at sujood was similar in length. So let us try and extend normally in Farad Salah, Subhana Rabbil A'la wa bihamdi 3 times, and then Sami'a Allahu liman hamdah, Subhana Rabbil A'la, Subhana Rabbil Azim wa bihamdi, then Sami'a Allahu liman hamdah. So 3 times in ruku', 3 times in sujood, right? That's the minimum sunnah. But when you are reading your Tahajjud Salah, increase that, make it 11, make it 15, make it lots. Just carry on. You understand? Allah make it easy. Right. Next one is best time to perform Tahajjud. Right? The best time. There we burn the midnight candle again. So if you divide the night into thirds, then the middle third is the most virtuous. Now we understand that the hadith says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends to the first sky in the last third of the night. Okay? So you might ask yourself, well, isn't the last third of the night the superior time to perform your Tahajjud Salah? Right? Answer to that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls out in the first third of the last third of the night. By the way, him coming to the first doesn't mean physically descending. Remember, that doesn't mean physically descending. It means Allah's special focus on those people performing Tahajjud at that time of the night. Okay? And then Allah says, is there anyone asking for forgiveness so I can forgive him? Is there anyone asking for sustenance so I can sustain him? Is there anyone asking for this? Is there anyone asking for that so that I can give it to them? Okay? So that portion of the night is for what? For dua. So the middle portion is for your salah, for exerting yourself at ibadah, and then it's time to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, there's a better view. If you divide the night in half, then the second half is most virtuous. The last portion here is what I want everybody to focus on. If you divide the night into 6 parts, the night starts when? Sunset. Sunset to sunrise. Sorry, sunset to subh sadiq. From sunset to subh sadiq, okay? Divide that night, that portion into 6 parts. So now sunset is about 6:30. Subh sadiq is, let's say, 4:30. So from 6:30 to 4:30 is how many hours? 10 hours, guys. 10 hours, guys. Okay? Not 8. 6:30 is 12. Minus 2 is 4:30. So 10. Okay? 10 hours. So if you divide that 10 into 6 portions, then the last 2 and the 6th CS of the night, isn't it? 2, 4, 6. Huh? 1 and 6. 10 hours into 6. 10 divided by 6. 5/3. 1 hour, 1 and 2/3. So 1 and 2/3 are 1 hour 40 minutes slots. 1 hour financial management, brother. 1 hour and 40 minute slots. So the last 1 hour 40 minutes is for sleep. The 1 hour 40 minutes before that is for dua, and the 1 hour 40 minutes before that is for tahajjud. 6 portions of the night. Okay? If it's preferred, it's preferable to divide the night into 6 portions. You sleep the first 3 portions half. Worship and perform tahajjud in the 4th and the 5th. And then sleep in the 6th again. Got it? So first half of the night is for sleeping. The second half of the night is divided into 3 parts. The first 2 parts of that is for ibadah and dua. And the last 6 is for sleep. Okay? Normally what we do, wake up in the last 100th of the night, quick dua, Allahu Akbar, quick dua, and then that's fine too, brother. As long as you perform your tahajjud salah before Fajr time started. Okay? But this is the ideal, and that's the way Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam used to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, next slide. And I must tell you, I'm very impressed with my skills here. Next slide. There's some surahs that we'd like to think about, right? And these are surahs that we commonly read. There's only 2. Surah Fatiha, we have to know. Okay? And if you go into the depths of Surah Fatiha, you'd be astounded. Okay? Then just to digress, there's some Sufis here from the Shia order, not Muslim at all, just so by the way, who have this opinion that there is another Surah Fatiha hidden within Fatiha. The uttermost hogwash you'll ever hear in your life. There's no such thing, because effectively you're now saying that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has not imparted the full message of Quran to us. I wonder what iman you have in your heart. Okay? There's only one Surah Fatiha. It's this 7 verses, Sab'a al-Mathani wal-Quran al-Azim. Okay, khalas. And this Surah Fatiha is enough for us. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Rahman refers to that being who will be merciful to anyone and everybody in dunya and akhirah. Okay? Anyone and everybody. And Rahim, that being who will be specifically merciful only to the believers on the day of Qiyamah. The hadith is so beautiful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has divided His mercy into 100 parts. How many parts? 100. 1 part Allah has distributed amongst the entire creation from its inception until the end. And because of this mercy, parents show mercy to their children, animals show mercy to their young. We show mercy to one another. We see refugees, we see people in crises, and we feel bad for them. That is mercy. That is part of that 1%. And on the day of Qiyamah, the deficit 99% is only and solely for everyone who said La ilaha illallah on the day of Qiyamah. That 99%. So brothers and sisters in Islam, there is absolutely no reason to become despondent in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or think that my sins are too many, or Allah won't forgive me, or Allah wouldn't answer my du'as. When 99% of His mercy is kept, and you are one of the people who's going to be benefiting from it on the day of Qiyamah, and it's only for us. Well, what need is there for us to lose hope? So let us go down the list here. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praise is due to Allah, who is the Rabb. Rabb means somebody who nourishes and sustains, who looks after, meticulously cares for something from before it was even a twinkle in its mother's eye until it is conceived, while it is conceived, while it is in the womb, then it is born through that process during the birth, because anything could have happened. You could have become brain damaged in birth as well, by the way. Lack of oxygen, umbilical cord around your throat, anything could have happened, right? Then the nurse could have even dropped on your head. I don't know how to look at one specific person when I say that. Allah must have better. Okay. Anything could have happened while you were being born. Okay? But Allah looked after you. And then you are nurtured in the arms of your mother. You are breastfed. You are clothed. You are cared for. You are sent to school, doctor's appointments, the works until you're an adult. And then throughout your adult life, it's jobs, it's bills, it's all these things that Allah is looking after you. And then I went through the discussion once about a grain of rice in your plate. The entire system behind 1 grain of rice that is important. Let's say you eat in Lal Qila basmati rice that comes from India. Now in India, they have Bangladeshi workers on those farms looking after the rice. There's an entire irrigation system. There's the earth. There's the rain. There's the entire atmosphere and the climate and all of that. There's the people working there. There's their homes. There's the entire system of looking after them. There's the trucks. There's the silos. There's the DHLs to bring the stuff to South Africa. There's the stuff from Allah. Almost something ugly. The brother sitting in Indonesia with his import-export license, bringing in the rice so that it can be exported to Fordsburg. And let's not talk about cooking oil and whoever's profiting from the cooking oil prices. Okay, it's gonna be. We have to get air fryers for Ramadan this year, guys, because we won't be able to fry samosa and it's too expensive. Right, that entire system for 1 grain of rice. What about all the rice? Huh? I have an air fryer. No, it's expensive. One universe after the other, one realm after the other. So when I asked my teacher, what does Alameen refer to? Because in my mind, realms, worlds, Earth is a world. There must be another one, other verses and stuff that we're talking about, and other galaxies. There's life in other galaxies, maybe. It doesn't mean any of that. The hadith explained, and the ulama of tafsir have explained that different species, there are approximately 100 and some odd thousand, 140 some odd thousand different categories of animals and living beings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to. Every single species of creation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking after. So if there's aliens, by the way, just wherever, Allah is looking after them too. They fit into this alam story. Okay? Again, Allah says, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. So don't be stressed that Malik Yawmiddin, he's the king of the day of judgment. He's the master, the owner of the day of judgment. Because before that, he's telling the believers, I'm Rahman and Rahim. The time is coming, but don't forget, I'm Rahman and Rahim. Right? Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. And this is where we come in, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the hadith, Hada bayni wa bayna abdi. This is between me and my servant. Right? Now, whatever my servant asks, I will give. Oh Allah, only you we ask for help, and only you do we worship, and only you do we ask for assistance. And then ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. So ihdina means guide us. Okay? So why the word ilah is not used there? Ihdina ilah. Because normally with the word guidance, al-hidayah, the word ilah comes. Ilah means towards. So Allah didn't say ihdina ila sirat al-mustaqim. Guide us to the straight path. Because then effectively you're saying I'm not on the straight path, I need to still get there. So why Allah removed that? Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. It means keep us guided on the straight path. With Iman in our hearts and Islam in our lives, we are on the straight path. Keep us on the straight path. Sirat al-mustaqim, the straight path, right? Then what is the straight path? The path of those upon whom you have shown your favor. Not the path of those with whom you are angry or who have earned your anger, and nor those who have gone astray. And the last, maghdub alayhim refers to the Jews, and dalin refers to the Christians. Jews, maghdub alayhim, despised and hated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because why? They wanted to dictate to Allah what deen is and what salvation requires. Okay? And dalin, the Christians went so far in trying to make Allah happy and please Allah that they just allowed anything and everything. Now you walk into a new apostolic church and it's rock concerts in the front and everyone want to feel the spirit of Jesus, and the priest coming down the stage and smacking him on the forehead. Jesus accepted you. Jesus accepted you. Rather, when did Jesus come reveal anything to you to tell you he accepted anybody? Okay? Sorry, Ellen. So they went so far in trying to please Allah and love and mercy and compassion to the extent where conditions of Iman are not even important anymore. Conditions of Iman are not even important anymore. Okay? And the next surah that we're going to do is Qul Huwallahu Ahad. Right? So this is a very important surah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Again, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Say, He, Allah, is one. Right? So normally people say, we talk about Tawheed, which refers to the oneness of Allah. The word is singularity and not oneness. Singularity means that there is only one thing, and that's the be all and end all. It's one single thing. And oneness means there's a number of things that have come together to make one. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't have parts, and He's not made up of different body parts or limbs or constituents or ingredients. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one single being, and you and I only understand things in terms of our mental capacity, our understanding, our ability to understand and rationalize, right? So we know matter, we know mass, we know weight, we know direction, we know color, we know sound, we know temperature, we know pressure, we know all these things, right? We know texture, we know flavors, we know, because we only know and understand dependent on our five senses. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not limited to that. So when we say Allah is one, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like for instance, the hadith speaks about Allah's in the sky. It doesn't mean Allah's in the sky, because that means if you point that way, there comes a point when Allah stops, or Allah's not, and then Allah starts. You understand? So now you're limiting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas direction, space, these things don't apply to Allah, because Allah was in existence before He created space. You understand? It's not like there was an empty room, and there was a bang in the room, and things came into existence within the empty room, and Allah's now filled up the room. Do you understand? That's not how it worked. There was no room, if you understand the analogy. There was space, did not exist. There was nothing. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created it. So if Allah created space, and we are all matter and things within space, which is a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it follows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was there before there was a concept of space, in which case space, direction, all these things don't apply to Him. You understand? So Allah is one. Then Allahu Samad. This is a beautiful, beautiful name of Allah. Samad means, now we translate this, Allah is the absolute. Okay? That's how it's translated, because English is barren. Absolutely barren. Okay? Samad means a being who is completely and entirely, in every sense of the concept, independent of anyone and everything. Got it? But together with that, anything and everything in existence is completely and utterly dependent on Him in every sense of the concept. You understand? When I say that our very existence depends on Allah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides that we mustn't exist anymore, not only can He take us away now and all of us be like, oh, where's Adil? Where's he? Allah decided He mustn't exist anymore. Allah could efface you from existence to the extent that we wouldn't have even known that you exist. Your forefathers didn't. No, nobody. It's like you were never there, and there was never a thought of you. There was never a concept of adil. There was nothing. You understand? Think about it. Time doesn't apply to Allah. Past, present, future means the same. So when we say Allah is the absolute, time, direction, dimension, existence depends on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Allah is completely independent of any and everything. So when you're making dua to Allah and you say, oh Allah, you are Samad, I acknowledge that you are completely independent of anyone and everything, including me. You don't need my ibadah either. But I, your servant, calling out to you at this hour, am completely and utterly in need of you. In fact, I am more in need of you than anybody in your creation. Please accept my dua. Beautiful dua I learned from my sister. Don't say, oh Allah, please give me. Oh Allah, please grant me. How about let's use some decent words when we speak to Allah. Oh Allah, please may I have a green Jeep Wrangler. All expenses paid. With a petrol allowance. You know, please may I have. Isn't that a beautiful way of asking Allah for something? Please may I have. Like I always found that when I speak to Allah in Afrikaans, I just feel a lot more emotional. Because this is my power. It's my language. Right? Like I can't relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as I can in Afrikaans because it's my language. And the beauty of it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala understands all languages. He created all of them. Abone, please show. Yeah, cool. Try it. Okay. Then the second last slide, just to almost conclude. Should I pray tahajjud in congregation or should I perform it alone? Okay. So the short and sweet of it is the Shafi'i madhab as well as the Hanafi madhab, right? So the Shafi'i madhab states that it is from the sunnah that nafil prayers are not offered in congregation. However, if one did offer them in congregation, it would be permissible without being a makruh. Okay? That's Mughni al-Muhtaj, volume 1, page 333. So if we in the Shafi'i community, in the context of Al-Aashiqeen, decide that for whatever reason we're going to do a optional salah in congregation, if they have a problem, anybody has an issue, well, too bad. Go and fight with this great Imam here, Imam Khatib Al-Shirbini, please. Go by his qabr there and fight with him for telling us what the Shafi'i Madhab says is permissible or not. Okay? Imam Abu Khatib Al-Shirbini will answer you from his qabr. Okay? Hanafi and Maliki scholars, however, contend that it is makruh and will be considered a bid'ah if it is done habitually. So what is the issue here? With Al-Aashiqeen in the context of what we do occasionally, like the Tahajjud program tomorrow. In the Tahajjud program tomorrow, there's a specific purpose why we are doing it in congregation. There's a specific purpose why we are creating the vibe. There's a specific purpose behind everyone coming to the masjid so we can explain stuff to them, so we can make dua to them. So you can get a physical example of what Tahajjud is like. So you get a physical example of how the dua after Tahajjud should be like. So you get a physical example of the dhikr after Tahajjud before Fajr, and then you can go home and replicate that. So it's a lesson. Now, if it is something that we decide now in Ramadan, in Masjid Al-Aashiqeen, every day before Fajr, we are going to read a Tahajjud in congregation. That might become a problem. You understand? Even according to the Shafi'i school. Okay? Because it is now against the Sunnah, where, as we all know, and the Imams of the different madhahib have explained that optional salah should be done individually. But there's something I want to point out to you. In your home, we all know in the hadith of Salman Farsi radiallahu anhu, he came to his friend Abu Darda radiallahu anhu, who wanted to perform salah the whole night. Firstly, he made him break his fast and eat because he wasn't fasting. And then he made him sleep 2/3 of the night and wake up in the last portion of the night and perform tahajjud. Abu Darda went to go and fight, complained by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam the next day that this man stopped me from my ibadah the whole night. I had to break my fast because of him. And then when Salman explained, but your body has a right over you, and your family has a right over you, and Allah has a right over you, so give everyone their due right. Right? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, well, Sadaqa Salman. Salman is right. Said the word right so many times. But in that hadith, what happened was, when Salman Farsi woke Abu Darda and said, now you can read Tahajjud, they woke everyone in the home up, and him and Abu Darda and his wife and the slave girl, all of them read Tahajjud together. Okay? It doesn't necessarily mean there was an imam and everybody, they all stood behind the imam, although that could be deduced from that hadith as well. Okay? So if in your home, and there's that hadith I explained to you last week or the week before, about husband and wife sprinkling water on each other, reading Tahajjud together to get the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you do that, then it doesn't constitute this congregation. We've been talking about this now, announced in the community, everybody, we are reading Tahajjud Salah every single day in Masjid Al-Aashiqeen with Imam so and so to understand what I'm saying. Then I just want to point out also that a lot of people feel like in Ramadan it's an exception, okay? Because the idea is to just create an environment of ibadah, right? So you'll find even in the Haramain, Makkah and Medina, Tahajjud time, what do the Imams do? What do the Imams do Tahajjud time? They appointed an Imam for Tahajjud and everybody can join, whoever wants to join, okay? So everybody knows there's going to be Tahajjud in the Haramain during Ramadan. So this is why I'm saying there's leniency. So let us not be overboard. If our madhab allows, alhamdulillah, we allow. And if you feel uncomfortable with that view, then there's another view. But like Sheikh Adam Al-Kawthari said, I don't know if you know, he's one of the big muftis of England. With regards to 15 Sha'ban, we can apply the same to the Tahajjud program. But if you don't hold the view that I'm holding, okay, and you don't feel comfortable, khasla, leave me to read my Tahajjud, please. I didn't ask you to come join me. I didn't ask you to bring me to the masjid for Tahajjud. Go sleep. I'll go myself. You understand? Same thing with anything. Everybody is entitled to follow the sheikh or the hazrat or the view that they feel like. Okay? As long as your heart tells you that this is right. Please don't go and follow the most fabulous fatwa under the sun that makes everything halal, because that doesn't work like that. Sharia doesn't work like that. Don't go fatwa shopping now until you hear the fatwa that you want. Like we've got a woman who's taken an 8-year-old child to a psychiatrist to try and prove that the father's abused him and he's going through psychological and emotional trauma.